Okay, so welcome to this second video. The first one we looked at actually considered price elasticity of demand, and this one here we're actually going to be interpreting it. So if we look at a product being elastic, and we've got here on our diagram, we've already discussed the slope of the demand curve and the differences between the more elastic products. And we've said that more elastic products have a higher change in the quantity demanded as a result of the price. So it's something we really need to be aware of if we, as businesses, are to make good decisions about supply and demand, because after all, we're trying to maximise our products. So with a less elastic product, what you're going to remember is that a small change in the quantity demanded will occur as a result of a similar size change of the price. If we think about the determinants of price elasticity of demand, so the actual determinants, other reasons why this might happen, and let's think first of all about the availability of substitutes, because if there's a lot of close substitutes, it can actually lead to a more elastic demand. Perhaps they're more sensitive demand. I mean, let's think of beans, for example. A difference in the quality may not be great, so the expectation of consumers to substitute and change brands to something similar, let's say spaghetti hoops. If it's unique, it's difficult to switch brands, and therefore the customer is more likely to stick with a product, and therefore the product will be less elastic. So the quantity demanded is less sensitive to change in price, but if there's lots of substitutes available, then it's likely it's going to be a very elastic demand. If we think about the type of product, now luxury goods are more elastic than necessities, because after all, we all buy our basic foods first before we buy luxury goods like new clothes, and we may have to cut out luxury foods, holidays, new iPads. So therefore they're much more elastic than necessities. If we think about the proportion of income spent, more expensive products tend to be more elastic. And then we think about a time period. Now after a while the effects of a price change is often dampened, and a clear example of this is petrol. Now if the petrol is increased, we all fill our tanks up, but that doesn't last long. So we think, well, we'll start walking more, or we'll start getting the bus. So an increase may see a temporary change and our demand lessened, but it's only for a very short period of time, and then we're back to our usual demand. If we think about the variation of elasticity, so the price elasticity of demand and other elasticities we're going to look at, they can vary along the range. So the price elasticity of demand does not have to be a constant. It needs to be a relatively straight curve, but it can have extremes. So as prices become more extreme, elasticities might also become more extreme. And here we are, looking at this variation here. When the price is high, there's not really much difference as the price increases, because after all, if you can afford it and it's a high cost, it doesn't make a significant difference if the cost increases. So for example, if I've decided I'm going to buy a Lamborghini and it goes up, it doesn't really make a lot of difference if I can afford a Lamborghini anyway. So reducing the price further may not necessarily have a dramatic impact on whether the people will buy your product. After all, they may have already decided to purchase it anyway, so a small increase isn't important. Or it could be something you only buy one of, like your course textbook. You buy one copy, but a further difference in the price is not going to make you buy a second copy. So elasticity can vary across the spectrum. If we think about the total expenditure, it's the product of price and the quantity purchased. So TE, the total expenditure, equals the price multiplied by the quantity. Now, changes in price and the quantity demanded and purchased do affect the total expenditure. And one of the most useful things you can do with price elasticity of demand is make decisions around total expenditure and total revenue, which are obviously key issues if you run a business. Just continuing further on this total expenditure and price elasticity of demand, when the demand is elastic, therefore it's greater than 1, the quantity changes more than the price. So with your elastic products, it's more important that people buy your product. The total expenditure changes in the same direction as the quantity purchased, so the price you get for each unit of the product. Now when the demand is inelastic, i.e. it's less than 1, the quantity changes are less than the price. So the total expenditure changes in the same direction as the price. So to maximise your total expenditure by getting the maximum price for your products, and perhaps by selling less of them. On our total expenditure decisions, if you wish to maximise your revenue, then you need to consider price elasticity. If you put up the price, then how does that affect the number of items you're going to sell? And there will usually be a combination that maximises your revenue, but this is an area where we're going to be studying further in future weeks.